Good evening and welcome to the special Monday meetup for OT students. My name is Robin and I'm Executive Director of SAOT. The evolving COVID-19 situation has obviously created unprecedented challenges for all of us. So we wanted to offer up this topic for tonight, which is impacts for OT students. In order to successfully moderate the meetup, we have muted all audio. And during the open forum portion of the agenda, you are able to unmute your own line. You are also encouraged to use the chat box at the right of the screen to post your comments and questions. And please indicate if your question is directed to a specific person on the call. The call tonight will be moderated by Shanif, who is an SAOT board member and also the CAOT representative, and Juanita, SAOT board member, and our U of A student representative. So I will now ask Shanif to introduce our guest.
Okay, so our primary guest is going to be Marianne Barrett. She is the ACOT Executive Director. Can you, Marianne, maybe give a bit of introduction of yourself and your role, etc.?
Sure. So I'm the registrar with ACOT, and ACOT and SAOT are like good neighbors on a good street. We work together, but we have different mandates, whereas SAOT has more of an advocacy reach. ACOT does not do advocacy. We are in serving the public interest, and we handle complaints about occupational therapists. We handle the occupational therapist registration, and yeah, so we come out to the students a couple of times a year to describe a little bit more about what we do, and happy to be here tonight as well to answer any questions that do relate to ACOT.
Yeah, and see, I already got things mixed up because I said executive director, and that's what Robin is for SAOT, and you're the registrar, right?
That's right.
All right, so because we have such few participants, what we might want to do is just keep it an open mic and just talk. I mean, there's enough of a small enough group where we can actually just talk to each other, ask questions, etc. So I know this forum, the main thing is there's a lot of questions for yourselves as students thinking about, well, what's going to happen in September? How are the courses going to happen? You know, a lot of students are quite, I'm surprised because I expected a lot of out-of-town students to want to be part of this because they're probably wondering, do I have to move back in September? Do I not? You know, all those kinds of things. So I don't know, we can just open it up and ask questions or whatever you want. Anybody?
Well, I'll start off
So then, okay.
To your point about, like, the U of A statement was pretty vague, right? So I could see, like, under the statement, like, we might come back for labs or something, but does the department have any ideas as to whether or not we will have, like, a blend of in-person and online, or is it just going to be all online, or all online with in-person but accommodating folks who can't come in person?
Okay,
Yeah.
so simply put, that statement that you got was very similar to the statement we got. In fact, it was the same statement. But at the same time, we do have a little bit of information from behind the scenes and stuff. And some universities have gone to complete online, and that's all they're doing. For example, UBC, first term is all online. They're not even looking at any other options. The nice thing is the U of A has decided to leave the door slightly open to allow some courses and some programs to allow for face-to-face things. I just received, sort of, they're working on a template, so it's not even complete, and I kind of skimmed over it, but what they've asked is, for example, if the OT program wants to do any of its courses face-to-face or any components of courses, first off, it has to go through, you put in a request, and that request, they believe it or not, they have it as red light, green light, and yellow. So if it's no matter if the course is over 50 people, automatically it's not even going to be considered. Okay? If the course is, I think it's 29 to 50, there may be rare occasions where they might allow something. If it's 0 to 29, they will consider it, but they'll have to look at what precautions, why you're doing it, etc. And having a reason like, oh, it'd be nice to see the students, and it's so much nicer to have them in the class and all that, that's not good enough. What they're looking for is specific reasons why, what content specifically cannot be taught online that requires the students to be here face to face. What they are looking at is professional programs, clinical programs, etc. So, for example, OT, PT, nursing, medicine, dentistry, etc. All of these would have the opportunity. Now, the first thing that I have to do when I looked at this red light, green light, and all that kind of stuff is look at what types of things as a program do we have when it comes to uh, requirements. So actually, backing up, I sent out a template to all our staff. And what we did was we filled out all the content from last year, assuming that the content will be very similar from last year to this year. Then I told the professors to go through their content and see if they're making any changes. That's the first thing. So they make those changes, and then they have to identify, can it be taught online? And if not, what content specifically, or, can it be taught online and what resource do they need? And if it can be taught online, what strategies can we look at? Okay, so we've gathered all of that. This Friday, we're having a curriculum meeting where we're going to start discussing it. I have someone from CTL coming in to talk about resources and stuff that the university is providing to all the faculty in preparation. Okay, so that's one. Now, the other issue is in occupational therapy. I'm going to be totally upfront. We don't have as many hands-on labs, etc., as compared to physical therapy or some of the other programs. So as a program, we also have to think about, well, is it worth having, for example, in year one, is it worth having the students come in and the only real face-to-face lab is my lab, the physical assessment lab. And if you're, let's say, living in Ontario, do you want to fly into Edmonton and stay here and have to do all the courses online except for 2 hours a week? Is that fair to come in? Okay, so that's a big question is, do we drag students to come into Edmonton just for a few hours a week? Is that fair to the students from a cost perspective and a safety perspective and all of that? So right now, we're actually looking at all the options. One of the things that's being bantered around, and I'm not going to say yes or no, it's going to happen or not, is having sort of almost like a week-long intensive situation where we only have about 25 students come in, and these students would get, let's say in year one, anything that the profs would like to do face-to-face, the physical assessment, all of that kind of stuff, where they learn most of it online, and then that week they kind of do it intensively, practice the skills, and what would happen is they'd be paired up, and you'd only be allowed to work with that student you're paired with. You'd get one plinth, and that plinth would be yours for the whole week. You would wipe it down and whatever, and each plinth, I actually took video of the 301, 307, where the plinths are put at social distance. So right now, between 301 and 307, I can split it up. I can put 12 people in 301 and 14 people in 307. So basically, we can fit 30 people if we split the room. Okay, so something like that. I mean, we're looking at everything. The other big issue now, the university is not saying you can only allow so many people in a building. So they're not setting that. So for example, they won't say, okay, in Corbett Hall you're only allowed 100 people or 50 people, whatever, like at Costco or something like that. What they're saying is within each room there might be a limit of 15, 25, or whatever. So that's how we're looking at it. And the other thing that we're looking at is, okay, let's imagine that physio has their students coming in, OT has their students coming in, and then you have other students coming in that could cause too many students in the building and washrooms and all of that kind of stuff. So now what we're looking at is, well, if physio is having students coming at a certain time, then OT wouldn't have and that kind of stuff. What I'm thinking or what OT is thinking is basically we might take the content of both year one and year two and kind of accordion it a little bit, where the students would be taking, instead of, let's say, we're going to keep the schedule just the way it is. So for example, in year one, 583 lectures are Tuesday, Thursday from 1 to 3. So that would happen from 1 to 3, synchronous or asynchronous, whatever the prof decides. Then we might add an additional class on either Friday or self-directed, and maybe get all the content done for that course in 2 months. And then the last month, we would allow the students to come in that week long. So during that month, you'd only come in for 1 week. Or some profs might say, no, I can't squeeze it all into 2 months. So then we would make them look at the last month more self-directed. So if you're in Corbett getting your week-long intensive, during that week, you don't have to worry about the content. You have another 3 weeks to work on it. And, so we'd look at it that way. I was actually quite interested to hear what you all thought about it. Do you, because even for year twos, the main courses that you're looking at is a pediatrics course, but Sandy has already looked at certain options for various things that she does in her lab, but there are a few things that still need to be done face-to-face. And then Karen, in the neurology, clinical neurology course, there's some things around transfers and lifts and shoulder therapy and stuff, which needs to be done face-to-face. But again, she said she can do that all in intensive 1 week. So we might look at the same model for year twos as we are doing for year ones. So that's kind of the thinking. And I'm interested to hear from the few people who are here. What's your thoughts? Would you like something like that? Or is it something where you prefer to come in, maybe 1 day a week for the whole term?
Well, thank you for that overview. That was very comprehensive. I didn't expect so much.
Well, I'm expecting that question, right?
But that is what to expect of you, right, Shannon? I guess I could start since I asked it. What I'm hearing from the court is actually not so much like uncertainty around like getting the in-course work. It's actually what a lot of folks have been telling me is they're concerned that we would go all online and then January 2021, bam, January 1st, we're back in placement. And I think that's what a lot of people were worried about is not having any face-to-face contact with professors or stuff and then just going to placement and feeling like they didn't have the skills to succeed in placement. So I actually think that the 1 week condensed thing for year two would be super helpful in terms of just getting people to get back into it, seeing and having that like confidence that they can deal with patients. Because I think what a lot of people are like, there's some people in my cohort who have said like, well, I haven't done physical like, MMT and like range of motion in 6 months or whatever it's been. So now they're afraid like if I get a like acute care placement at the Grey Nuns in January, am I going to be like able to do the skills that are required or demonstrate those skills? And so,
there's another part of it that we're also looking at is when students, for example, you're all supposed to do 525 this summer, and by not doing 525 this summer, you're actually behind, because we find that students who go out on placement, when they come back in September, when they start year two, they're in a different mindset. They have more first-hand knowledge. They're able to apply things better, and there's they've actually developed a lot of skills, and also they're able to participate in class at a higher level. Now, not having that placement, we're gonna the professors have to realize that they're not going to get the students at the same level that they normally do, and they have to accommodate that by using more examples, maybe using more clinical cases, etc., to sort of compensate for the fact that you haven't had that clinical 525 placement. So yeah, that's a big issue, and you're right. We don't want to just throw you out there, but the reality is, we also want to make sure that you're not being so delayed in your program.
I wonder if anyone else has any thoughts? Or Robin, did that answer your question about the U of A being online this fall?
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to hear from Shannon or Serena or Zori.
Hi. Yeah, I'm really glad that you gave all the options that you were thinking, because I have the same concerns Drew and Nita mentioned about not having any face-to-face stuff. That was kind of a worry, but at the same time, moving 5 hours for an hour a week is also, I mean, tough financially. So I would be open to doing an intensive week uh, for long term, even though, I mean, I think that'll be a really good option. Not ideal, but I mean, we're adaptive, so that makes me
And
feel a bit better. So
one thing that I was actually talking to one of the profs just this morning about is also doing things on Zoom, where, for example, the profs would do one-to-ones with students, or let's imagine, Shannon, you're in Saskatchewan, right? I think. So let's imagine that there's this one of your friends in the program that's also local, so you might get together and practice on certain skills, right? And you could be sort of within each other's bubble. And then what would happen is Karen would come in and say, okay, do this, and she'd watch you over Zoom or video and saying, no, you need to hold there, give a extra pressure there, do this, that kind of stuff, and actually do some very intensive one-to-ones sort of thing. And I mean, that's some of the reality we'll have to do too. Serena's got a question, right?
Yes, but I think it came in the chat. She's wondering if you'd consider making all classes synchronized with the option to view recorded lectures on your own. She says she knows she's not the only one who sometimes finds it challenging to fit in all the hours per day when you're juggling 5 courses. And I think what this
Okay, so
I was just gonna say, with our cohort, when we took 5, 6, 7 with David, we had it synchronous. And actually, a lot of folks liked that because it was like you blocked it off in your day and it made you committed to actually going to class and doing all of that. So.
and you know, when the COVID hit and they closed the university, one of the things that came out from RMTG and just in terms of the university was the fear that the systems are going to crash. So they were saying avoid synchronous as much as possible. But I think some of that information was misleading. Okay, I'm being upfront because for example, in spring session when David was doing 567, and I'm teaching a course right now, there's 150 students. I'm using Zoom. Everybody, I expect them to be on video. I can watch them, and we actually interact, and it's great. No problems whatsoever. We record it. It's all done. So on Friday, I do have somebody from CTL. And one of the questions I'm going to directly ask them is in September, with the whole university going online, what is the capacity? Will we be able to do synchronous, asynchronous? Because when I had a meeting with the associate chairs and the associate dean just last week, again, the thing was, you should be going asynchronous. But I'm also hearing the other side that, things like Zoom and all that, they're not heavy intensive use. And as long as you can get Wi-Fi, it's not an issue at all. So I want it from the horse's mouth, you might say, and in terms of what exactly is available. And again, some of the professors have already come to me and said, I would prefer to do this synchronously because I like to connect with the students and all that. And I have to say, I've been teaching a class for 2 weeks now, and I'm having better interaction and better, dialogue with the students because I can see the students close, I can see their name, and I can actually pull them out of the crowd and say, hey, you, da da da. And, I can actually, if they look a little puzzled, and when they talk, they move to the main screen, I can see 25 students at once. So in a class of 150, yes, it's, you need to kind of get used to that, but it's been great. And I don't see a problem with that. But again, I want to make sure that we're not starting up something and suddenly things are crashing. The other thing is, as a as a department, or actually a faculty, we've been using LifeSize because we've been connecting to Calgary. But now with Zoom and Google Hangout, and there's new platforms being created by Microsoft and all that. So we're going to look at all of that and see which one. But right now it seems like Zoom, the premium edition, which all university Gmail account holders can get part of their thing. So you all can get premium Zoom if you want. Just sign up under Google Gmail. But anyway, long story short is, it seems like the bandwidth required for it is very low, and there seems to be very little problem. Okay, even this morning when I taught the physios, I came on and all the physios, like, it was all dark. None of them had their video on. And I told the prof, what's going on? He goes, well, we've told them to keep their videos off. I said, why? And he goes, well, to ensure that, whatever. I said, there's no problems. I teach 150 students, there's no problem. So I forced them to all to turn on their microphones, and some of them weren't happy because their hair wasn't done, but that's okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to pick on Zori. Do you have any questions, Zori? Oh, I see that Serena has talked about lag issues with 567. Yes, video does not work. And I found that out. So what I have been doing with my class is I upload all the videos and I tell them to watch the videos in a certain order before class. Then I say, remember the video you watched on blank? So things like that we need to think, but you can't, showing videos and stuff will not work. Those will have to be uploaded. And then that brings up the other issue of, what do you call it, copyright, etc.
So Robin's asking, how have students been coping with self-isolation and not seeing their friends?
I don't know. You guys tell me.
Classmates? Anybody? Is no one gonna talk?
Oh, Zori left the call, so it's only Shannon, Marianne, and Serena.
Well, I can tell you from what I hear from my perspective. So our cohort, we have decided we're doing a virtual book club. Jordan got that started. And we're also doing Jordan got started a pen pal group. So we're going to write each other letters amongst the cohort to stay in touch. And I feel like everyone's missing being in class, missing seeing people. That's why 567 was nice, because you got to see your classmates, and we all appreciated it. And then it was over, and then we kind of disconnected. So I think doing things like book club and the OT PDC is trying to do a PD month in July. So I think, again, some of us will see each other again in those PD sessions. So I think as a court, we've been trying to find ways to stay connected. And of course, it's tough as people have moved back home and now people are in different time zones and all of that. But we're trying. I do sense that there is some self-isolation. And what I hear from a lot of my classmates is that they relied on others to know when things were due and when things were coming up. And I can attest to this too. Like, I'd walk into Corbett Hall and someone would be like, we have an assignment due this Friday. And now that's not there, so I have to be more on top of things. Which was a challenge in like mid-March, where so.
I've actually had some calls and Zoom meetings and Google Hangout meetings with several students, and some are doing wonderful. They're at home, mom's cooking for them, and they're just kind of enjoying it. While there's others who are more isolated and they are finding it difficult and struggling. And then there's also the financial issues and stuff like that. I have a question for Marianne. This session is being recorded, so hopefully some students will access it later. But when it comes to, from a registration perspective, the second years, they're finishing. They're going to be a little bit delayed. And also their certification exam has been delayed to September. But even that is not for sure, because bottom line is right now, the way it's looking, unless they do it in groups of about 25 or 30, or else they start using some software like ProctorU or ExamLock and all of that together, it's going to be very difficult to get exams done. Now, the physical therapy students across the country have started a petition where they've actually My daughter is a PT student who just graduated, and they were supposed to do their practical certification exam this summer, and it got delayed, and now it's been moved to November. And it's one of these practical exams which they've all paid a couple thousand for and all that, but now there's a petition going around saying that they should just cancel it and give them their license, as the medical programs have done in several universities. So I guess from an OT perspective, how does that work for our students who are going to be graduating, and what if the exam isn't available and all of that?
Mm-hmm. So what happens is once you're eligible for your degree, the university lets ACOT know, and then you become eligible for our provisional register. And our regulation says you can be on the provisional register for up to a year. And in that time, we expect you to write the exam. Now, in extenuating circumstances, we can extend the time on the provisional register, and COVID-19 would be an extenuating circumstance, of course. And if the exam sitting is only held once and there isn't enough seats for everybody or that kind of thing, then we can extend the time on the provisional register.
Okay.
Oh, for me. Can you describe your office decor in one setting? What is your favorite? Oh yes, this is it. I've not changed. I don't use a Zoom background. I find people will stare at things. My favorite piece. So there's an image over there, which if you look close enough, it's actually my face and my friends. But she drew it on her charcoal for my 18th birthday, and it trips people out that I have this giant photo of myself in my room. I'm not narcissistic. It's just there. I mean, she did it, but it's always fun to watch people's reactions when they notice that. Yeah. See, Sean, if you should get some funky things in your background, and then
Oh, no. You don't know my wife.
personality.
If I put something on the wall, it has to be approved by my wife. So
You can
no,
get
I
your
can't.
VR avatar
You
in
know,
the corner, and then see if people notice. And
yeah, no, you don't know my wife. But anyway, at work, it's funny because I have a fish tank in my office, and the fish, the way the tank is, the fish actually look like they're going into my ear, and then they come out of my ear, and people actually stare and look at this, and they kind of laugh at that. But Susan Mulholland from Calgary says it's like babblefish.
so I've been canvassing
So
people's
Robin,
reactions. Oh, sorry. There was someone in a court who did. I think this is Miriam or somebody who had a question around whether or not SAOT members would be keen to have virtual coffee with OT students or talk to OT students about their practice or their career path in either summer or fall, so that folks in our cohort would get that chance to talk to OTs practicing, see what's that, and then that could help inform either where they choose their placements or just how they want to frame their future OT practice.
I love that idea. I think that's an excellent idea and something we could certainly work on maybe together. If you would be open to chatting with me about that offline, we'd be happy to put that in place. That's a great idea.
Hey.
I'm thinking that's actually a brilliant idea, because if we can almost find an OT mentor per student in these special times where our students are going to be, finishing off term one and they're saying, wait a minute, we're going on a placement and we haven't had any face-to-face with our profs and, limited exposure to hands-on stuff, it might actually be nice to have an OT mentor that you can throw questions about you when you're taking content, or how would you do this in clinic? They talked about it in class, but I'm still having trouble trying to visualize what that would be. And having an OT to talk to, that'd be almost. Robin, I think that'd be a really neat idea.
I agree. I think that's great.
Well, I will connect with you then afterwards, Robin, and we can figure out. Because I just think what I'm hearing from the court is that they're missing placement and they want opportunities to connect with practicing OTs, which is what you get in placement. And then some of them are interested in niche areas like tech or pediatrics or cardiovascular. So if it's possible to match a mentor in those areas, that would be amazing. If not, I think just having that mentorship or just being able even to talk to an OT for like 30 minutes and get some sense of like how their practice is. And even I think some of the cohort has talked about even wanting to know how the practice has changed because of COVID-19 and how OTs are envisioning it's going to change in the future. Like, for example, telehealth is probably going to become a bigger part of OT services, right? So.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really good points, and it would be also interesting because some of the OTs have been redeployed, and there are OTs out doing swabbing and all kinds of things during COVID-19, and so it'd be really interesting to be able to ask them questions about some of their experiences during this time.
Okay, there's a question. I'm going to just read it. I realize the department is meeting Friday. Actually, the meeting on Friday is curricular, and we're just looking at, okay, how do we start adapting? I was just wondering, because my chances of secure my university residence, etc. So bottom line is, I'm going to be quite straight with this. Who's SD anyway?
Serena.
Oh, Serena, sorry. Okay, so Serena, I'm going to be quite upfront with you. We're not going to have an answer, but the reality is most of your program will be online in September, okay? And if there is going to be, you guys are in second year, so like I said, Karen and Sandy. Sandy has already kind of looked at her course, and she's like, because she said, I'm going to be away for the next month camping, and I'm going to get everything done. So she's already ahead of this curve, and she's already come up with strategies, and she's removing one assignment and bringing in some other things that allow students to do more things on their own as opposed to being in Corbett Hall. So I'm really not concerned about the pediatrics course, and what do you call it? Karen's course. It's actually Ada Leong who teaches a course with John Mishashik, and then Karen takes care of the labs. Now within the labs, most of it can be done online. There's just a few things that Karen said that she would need a couple days with the students. So once we get that clarified, if I were to guess, I would guess you're going to be doing an intensive few days, maybe not in a whole week. What it might be is, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you get all the content, and then you get Thursday off, and then Friday, you might have to do some sort of mini OSCE or something like that to demonstrate some of your skills. All right, so in terms of moving to Edmonton, I know you're from Calgary. I would probably say that you're probably going to be staying in Calgary. Now, because you're in Calgary, we're also going to probably do, face-to-face in Calgary, the intensive labs in Calgary, right? So what might happen is you might be able to join the Calgary cohort, and we just do the lab there. It depends on numbers. Now, the Calgary cohort for year twos is at 26. So we have a couple extra flexibility, or we might do it in groups of 15, right? So then definitely you could join up in Calgary. So I would, I think your need to come to Edmonton will be, I don't want to say yes or no because things change, but at the same time, you never know. And even right now, they might say we're allowed some sort of thing, but if suddenly there's another wave and all that, they might say, sorry, everything's online. And then what we're looking at is still continuing on doing the program, and then all the face-to-face, OSCEs and all that kind of stuff, we move to second term, and we have to kind of adapt. At the same time, if things suddenly change dramatically, what we might do is move some of the second term courses to first term and move some of the more practical first term courses into second term. So that's another, I've already got it mapped out. So whichever way the Alberta Health Services and the university goes, we can adapt and be ready for it. But at this point, I can't, I can't give you a straight answer. Now, we're hoping by mid-June to be able to give you some sort of idea. Myself, Mary Forehand, the chair, and several other people are going to be doing not a town hall, but an information session with year ones, year twos, and the incoming students well, so I should say year 2s, year 3s, and the incoming students. And we're doing that all in the first week and a half of June. So during that time, we're going to have a better idea within the next 2 weeks, within the next week. I have a meeting on Wednesday morning, and if we call it the COVID rehab medicine update sort of thing, and this is where all the decisions are made. So I'm sure, well, what we're doing is we're doing a walkthrough of the building at 8:30 to look at how we can spread things out. But then at 10 o'clock to 11:30, we're actually going to be discussing implementation and stuff. So I'm sure within this meeting, it's associate deans and stuff, so we get some behind the scenes information. So we will have a better idea, hopefully after Wednesday, which we're going to share with your classes next when the town halls happen. I'm not sure what the date is for your class.
It's June 3rd.
It's either June 8th, it's June 3rd. Okay, then it's June 8th for the third years.
So Robin has a question. Have registrations been affected with less people registering due to COVID?
No. Marianne.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Marianne.
You mean registration for students or registration for ACOT?
U of A.
Oh, sorry. Believe it or not, right now I'm a little bit panicky because usually when we send out our acceptances, we get all these people saying yes, and we usually send out about 20 or 30 more people accepted, 30 more people, because we always get rejected, like people saying, oh, I'm not going to come, or I've taken another program in another province, etc. This year, we only sent an extra 10, so it's way less than normal. And right now we're sitting at 130 accepted students. They've actually paid their money, everything. So I'm a little panicky right now because we can only fit 125, actually 127. Because this year we're taking an extra 5 students from things. So really, people have paid their money and they want to come. Now I'm expecting a few to, once they get accepted at UBC or Ontario and stuff, they'll drop out of our program. It happens every year. But compared to other years, more people have signed up and less people have said no than ever before. So it's a weird situation. And this year, OT, for example, had 500. We had 5 more applicants than we had last year. And last year, we had 555 this year. PT and speech both had 100 or so less applicants than they usually did. But OT was at its normal numbers, which is really nice to see. So I don't know, Robin. I think, if there's no more questions, everybody has my email. They're more than welcome to contact me. We are going to be having a town hall information session with all the students of various years. So I don't know if there's no more questions. I don't know. Did we want to wrap it up? Marianne, do you have anything else you have?
Oh, I got one more question for you,
Great.
Chad, from Nolana. She had to step out and mean she can't get back in, but she wanted to know what was going to happen with, in terms of like the labs that we missed in March. So like our VR lab, wheelchair repair, students like obviously paid tuition for those courses and they didn't get to do those labs. So is the expectation they'll do it in year 2, semester 2, or?
Well, that would be things. What would happen is that intensive week, all of those things will be thrown into that intensive week, definitely. So we haven't forgotten. It's definitely going to be happening. We just, because like I said, year 2, there's less, there's less content that needs direct face-to-face, especially with Sandy adapting her course so much. So we will have time during that week, so we will put in those labs that you've missed out on. One thing I will say for the wheelchair part, what we may do is Genevieve was part of the people who developed this online. Well, it's half and half. It's a wheelchair measurement and sort of workshop. which half of it's online and half of it's done face-to-face. I might try to look at maybe having the students have access to that information and then doing the face-to-face, having Genevieve come in or something like that. So we're definitely looking at options, but we can't forget that content. All right, well, I don't know if there's, Marianne, do you have anything else to add?
No, it's just good to hear what the students are experiencing right now and understand. So thanks for letting me listen in.
Now, I will just throw in one thing about fieldwork because that's also a concern. And we actually, we've had a better response when it came to number of placements. We were expecting maybe 30 placements to start off with. We're at around 50. And every day we're getting people calling in and saying, hey, and tomorrow, is it tomorrow? No, June 2nd, we have a meeting with Carmen Lazarick and several people from upper levels of Alberta Health Services looking at options for placements. At the same time, myself, for example, I had a meeting with Chrysalis, and they're looking at potentially 4 placements every section or every segment from July, August, 4 students, September, October, and then November, December. So that's 16 more placements that could happen, right? So we're trying to get as many students, because our goal is to get all the second years done so it doesn't interfere with your class, UNATA, because we want to make sure that you're able to go out on placement for 525 in January. So we're putting a lot of resources
in. To go on placement in January, so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Robin, do we want to wrap it up?
Yeah, it's unfortunate we didn't get more students calling in, but we will be posting the recording. So if you talk to somebody who missed it, they're welcome to go on the SAOT website on the COVID page, and they can listen to the meeting there. I want to thank all the students who did call in, and also Marianne and Shenif and Juanita. Thanks very much.
All right. Well, everybody take care, and we'll all hopefully meet in person and be able to shake hands.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks.